It started as whispers in the kitchen until the ring appeared at dinner. Mr. Jake Stories welcomes you. I'm so glad you're here, because every story we tell holds a lesson, a tear, and sometimes a miracle. Before we begin, I pray for you. May your life be filled with divine favor, unexpected breakthroughs, and peace that no storm can shake. Don't forget to subscribe, so you never miss a story that could change your life. Now, let's dive into today's story. At first, it was barely more than a murmur among the house staff. A flicker of suspicion passed between glances as a young master lingered too long near the pantry door. The whispers clung to the polished marble countertops like steam, curling upward, ignored but ever present. After all, Liam Sterling hadn't been home in years. Not really, and certainly not long enough to memorize the name of a housemaid. But something had changed this time. He had arrived without his usual entourage or tailored bravado, slipping into the estate late at night while the chandeliers were dark and the grand piano silent. The chauffeur barely spoke a word. No one knew why the heir to one of America's most powerful real estate dynasties had returned so quietly. Rosa Morales didn't care at first. At 22, she had learned it the hard way that rich people's problems were not her business. She swept the same floors each morning, brewed the same coffee, dark roast, 2 sugars, a splash of almond milk, and folded the same monogrammed linens with her head down. A job was a job. A paycheck was college tuition for her little brother, medicine for her father, and groceries that lasted longer than a day. But Liam Sterling noticed her. He wasn't supposed to. Not the way he did. Not the way his eyes lingered when she thought no one was looking. Not the way he spoke to her like she was the most important person in the room, even when the room was filled with senators and CEOs. He asked her name once, and she gave it without thinking, then regretted it. But he said it again later, correctly, with the accent, and that somehow made it worse. It meant he remembered. The second time he approached her was in the back garden. It was early morning, mist still rising off the grass, and she was pruning the rose bushes near the fountain. She didn't hear him at first, not until his shadow stretched across her gloves. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he crouched beside her and reached for a stray weed she had missed. "You're up early," he said. "I work here," she replied without looking up. He smiled. "So do I, technically." She didn't laugh. Instead, she stood and wiped her hands. "If you're not going to fire me, I should get back to work." "I'm not going to fire you." "Then stop acting like I'm someone you're supposed to talk to." That should have ended it. But Liam was raised by a man who bulldozed entire city blocks for sport. He didn't back down easily. Over the next few days, he found small excuses to cross her path. Books he claimed he lost, coffee he asked her to help him make, questions about the garden, the kitchen, the staff schedules. Each time, Rosa was polite, careful, restrained. And each time, something inside her flickered. She was smart enough to know better, but she was also human enough to feel it. He saw the way her hand shook slightly when he passed her a cup. She caught him watching her once through the reflection in the silver tray, and her face flushed, a rare bloom of color in her otherwise careful expression. Still, she refused to let herself believe this was anything more than curiosity. Until the night he followed her to the library. It was late, well past midnight. Rosa thought the estate was asleep. The guests had gone. The ballroom had quieted, and she had slipped into the dark library just for a moment of stillness. She loved the smell of old books. It reminded her of being little, hiding in libraries when the world outside was too loud or too cold. She was halfway through a tattered copy of The Souls of Black Folk when she heard the door creak. Liam stepped inside, barefoot, holding a glass of something amber. "Didn't peg you for a Du Bois fan," he said. "I'm not," she lied, slipping the book behind her back. He raised an eyebrow. "Then what's the line on page 93? She bit her lip. "You memorize it." He walked closer. "He simply wishes to make it possible for a man to be both a Negro and an American." Her heart skipped. She hated that he knew it, hated that it meant he saw something more in her than just her apron. "You should go." "So should you." But neither of them moved. That night, nothing happened. No kiss, no confessions. Just 2 people sitting on the floor of a silent library, talking about books and burdens and who they might have been if their lives hadn't been decided for them. She told him about her family, how her father once cleaned office buildings 2 floors beneath a luxury penthouse Liam's company had built. He told her about Harvard and how lonely it felt to have everything and still feel like a fraud. And when the clock struck 2, she stood to leave, brushing invisible dust from her uniform. "Rosa," he said before she reached the door. She turned. "I think I'm going to fire the head chef." She blinked. "Why?" "He told me it's inappropriate to laugh with the staff." She smacked. "Just barely. Then you might need to fire your whole family." He laughed softly, and for a moment, she forgot who they were. But the house didn't. The Sterling estate had eyes and ears built into the wallpaper. And within days, the whispers turned sharp. The butler started eyeing her with suspicion. Mrs. Sterling gave her extra chores that felt more like punishment than routine. The other maid grew distant, either jealous or afraid. Rosa tried to back away, to remain invisible, but Liam had already chosen the worst path possible. He treated her like she mattered. He defended her when Mrs. Sterling criticized how the napkins were folded. He thanked her by name in front of guests. Once, when she dropped a tray of champagne flutes during a cocktail hour, he knelt and helped her pick them up, ignoring the camera flashes and gasps from the crowd. That was the week everything cracked open. A Saturday night, a gala for the governor. The Sterling dining room looked like a movie set, golden candelabras, crystal glasses, music drifting like smoke from a grand piano. Rosa served wine in silence, avoiding Liam's gaze. She knew this would be her last week at the estate. She had already written her resignation. But then he stood. There was no announcement, no speech, just a sudden scrape of his chair and a flash of silver as he reached into his jacket pocket. The room dimmed. Conversations halted. Rosa didn't see it happen. She only realized when every pair of eyes turned toward her and the silence pressing like a storm. She turned, confused. Liam was standing in front of her, holding out a small, velvet box. No one spoke. He opened it. Inside was a diamond ring, not massive, but elegant, classic, intentional. Her breath caught in her throat. "Rosa Morales," Liam said, voice steady. "You once told me not to act like you were someone I was supposed to talk to, but I've thought about it every day since. And I realize you're the only person I want to talk to for the rest of my life. Will you marry me?" A fork clattered to the floor. Mrs. Sterling gasped, hands covering her mouth. Magnus Sterling stood slowly, like a glacier waking. His voice was thunder when it came. "Out!" The word didn't seem to belong to a sentence. It was a command, a decree. At first, Rosa didn't move. She stared at Liam, disbelief and panic warring in her chest. Then her body seemed to act without her mind, stepping backward, heart racing, hands shaking. "I can't," she whispered. Liam tried to follow, but Magnus caught his arm. "You move, you're done," the old man said. Rosa fled. Later that night, in the quiet staff quarters, she sat on the edge of a bed staring at her hands, which still trembled from a memory. A part of her wanted to run back to him, to say yes, to choose a fairy tale. But she had lived in the real world too long to believe in fairy tales. Love was not enough, not when it risked destroying both of them. She didn't know then that Liam would choose destruction over distance. She didn't know that the story was only beginning. The next morning, Rosa was gone. The staff said she left before sunrise, slipping through the back gates with nothing but a duffel bag and her silence. She didn't wait for a reference, didn't pick up her final paycheck. She simply disappeared, like a ghost too tired to haunt a place that never saw her clearly in the first place. Liam Sterling stood in the empty staff hallway, staring at the bed she had made perfectly before leaving, the pillow still indented from where she must have sat while deciding. A folded note sat on top of it, his name written in her handwriting, simple and unadorned. He didn't open it right away, not because he didn't want to read it, but because he already knew what it would say. When he finally unfolded the paper, the words cut sharper than he'd expected. "Liam, sometimes the only way to protect someone you love is to walk away. I'm sorry." He read it once, then again, then held it in his hands until it creased at the edges. The room around him felt too quiet, too polished, too unreal. He heard footsteps echoing in the hallway outside, his father's. "Get dressed," Magnus said without looking at him. "We're going to the office." You've done enough damage here. Liam didn't move. She's gone. Good. Magnus snapped. You embarrass his family in front of every power broker in the state. Your mother hasn't come out of her room. The press is circling like wolves. You think this is a joke. I wasn't joking, Liam said. I love her. Love. Magnus spat the word like it was poison. You think that's what keeps a billion-dollar empire afloat? Do you know how hard I worked so you could throw your life away on a girl who scrubs the floor? Liam turned to face him, his voice calm but steady. She's worth more than all of this. The slap didn't surprise him. What surprised him was how little it hurt. Magnus stepped back, his hand still trembling slightly. You're not a boy anymore. If you walk out that door, if you choose her, you lose everything. The company, your trust, your name, everything. I'd rather lose everything than live like you, Liam said. He packed his bags that night, not for a dramatic exit, but because there was nothing left in the house that felt like his. Not the cufflinks, not the leather suitcases, not the tailored suits his father had bought him. He took only a duffel bag and the note she left. The news broke 2 days later. The tabloids had a field day. Heir throws away empire for housemaid romance. Others were crueler. Rosa's name was dragged through the mud by strangers who had never met her. They twisted her background, speculated about her motives, published grainy pictures of her from a kitchen staff registry. Bloggers accused her of seducing him for money. Online trolls called her a gold digger, a maid playing Cinderella. Rosa had no idea it had gotten that bad until one afternoon at the diner where she worked in the next town over. A customer recognized her, snapped a photo, and before she could say a word, the image was online. That night, someone keyed the word slut into her car. She quit the next day. She moved again, farther this time, to a quiet town with fewer eyes. She found work in a shelter where no one cared who she had loved and lost. Every night, she told herself it had been the right choice. That no matter how much it hurt, she had spared Liam from a life torn apart by scandal, estrangement, and judgment. But her heart ached all the same. Liam, meanwhile, had moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Charleston. He spent the first few weeks in a haze of rejection, job offers rescinded when his last name was mentioned, old friends suddenly too busy to meet. He received a formal letter from a family trust. He was cut off, the accounts frozen, the inheritance revoked. His phone buzzed constantly with interview requests, all of which he ignored. He had nothing to say to people who only wanted the headline. He thought about Rosa constantly, not just a quiet way she listened, or the spark in her eyes when she talked about her family, but the way she saw through him, like she had known from the beginning that the version of him at galas and boardrooms wasn't real. He remembered something she once said to him in the library. You're so afraid of being ordinary that you're willing to live a life that doesn't belong to you. He had scoffed at the time. Now, he wrote it down on the white wall above his desk and stared at it for hours. He found work consulting for a small nonprofit that provided housing assistance to underserved families. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. And when he visited one of the complexes for the first time, a crumbling brick building with too many children and not enough heat, he felt something stir inside him, something he hadn't felt since she left. He began to build, not just buildings, ideas, plans, a vision. He created a pitch deck, called in favors from college friends who still believed in him, and started something new, the Sterling Foundation for Dignified Housing. He used the name not to honor his father, but to redeem it. He gave speeches at community centers, worked nights creating architectural drafts for transitional housing, and poured every ounce of his inheritance, what little remained, into acquiring land in the city's poorest neighborhoods. Some laughed at him, some ignored him, but the families he served didn't care who his father was. They cared that someone was showing up, not with cameras or pity, but with commitment. A year passed. One day, while scrolling through the Foundation's growing social media page, Rosa came across a photo someone had shared. It was a mural painted on the side of a new housing complex. Kids played in front of it, smiling. In the corner of the image, she spotted a familiar figure, head bowed, sleeves rolled up, painting beside them. Her heart stopped. Liam. She hadn't seen him in a year, hadn't dared to search. She thought he had moved on, returned to the world he was born into. But here he was, dressed like a volunteer, working beside strangers in a neighborhood that looked nothing like the mansion he had grown up in. She read the caption. Love built this grand opening of Sterling Community Housing, Block A. For the first time in months, Rosa cried. It took her 3 days to find the address, 2 more to gather the courage to go. When she arrived, she didn't expect anyone to recognize her. The foundation was hosting a community open house. Children ran through the halls, walls decorated with artwork and colorful tiles. Each apartment was furnished modestly, but with care. Fresh linens, stocked kitchens, potted plants by the windows. It didn't look like charity. It looked like dignity. She spotted Liam near the main stage, talking to a group of elderly residents. His hair was longer now, messier. His suit was replaced with jeans and a button-down rolled to his elbows. He looked free. She stayed in the back as he stepped up to the MIC. I want to thank all of you for coming, he began. This place is the first of many. And it's built on a simple idea that everyone deserves a home. Not just a roof, but a place where they feel seen, safe, and human. The crowd clapped. He paused, searching the crowd. There's someone I wish could be here today, he said, his voice softer. She once told me that love isn't about comfort or wealth. It's about what you're willing to build together. Everything I've done since, it's because of her. She saved me from a life that looked perfect on paper, but felt hollow in my bones. Someone near Rosa glanced at her, as if sensing something. She left to protect me, Liam continued, but she taught me how to live. After the applause, he stepped down. Rosa waited until most people had dispersed. Then, quietly, she approached him near the mural. He turned. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she said, You didn't need to build all this just to find me. I didn't build it to find you, he said. I built it because you showed me who I was. She smiled, tears rising. So, what now? Liam pulled something from his pocket. Not a diamond, not velvet, just a single yellow wildflower, slightly bent at the stem. No speeches this time, he said. No fancy dinners. No noise. Just a question. He offered her the flower. Will you walk with me, not into legacy, but into life? She didn't hesitate this time. Yes. They stood there as the sun set behind the mural, its painted hands reaching upward toward the sky, just like theirs. Rosa hadn't expected to feel peace. She had imagined tears, conflict, questions she wouldn't know how to answer. But when she said yes, standing before the mural with a flower in her hand and Liam smiling like he had finally come home, peace was all she felt. They didn't rush into marriage, though. Not this time. There were no announcements, no photographers, no designer dresses waiting in a Manhattan loft. What they had was simpler now, quieter. Rosa moved into a small apartment near the Sterling Foundation's community housing site. Liam refused to move her in with fanfare or ceremony. We'll make a home together, he said, even if it's built from folding chairs and second-hand books. They cooked together. They argued over spices. They stayed up late reading aloud from books she used to hide behind starved doors. And every so often, Rosa would catch Liam watching her, not the way he used to, with curiosity or hunger, but with something softer, like wonder. He told her once, over tea, I didn't know how hollow my life was until I started living one with you. She touched his face gently and replied, That's because you finally stopped performing. The world didn't forget them. The story lingered online like smoke. Some blogs framed it as a romantic fairy tale. Others sneered. He gave up billions for a maid, one tabloid snarked. Rosa read that one while grocery shopping and laughed. I like how they act like I was keeping the money hostage, she told Liam, holding up the headline. Yeah, he said, peering over her shoulder. Next week they'll say you burned down the trust fund with a mop. But despite the noise, their world grew quieter. Rooted. Focus. The Sterling Foundation expanded. With help from Rosa's design ideas, her sketches from old notebooks and conversations with residents, they created floor plans that felt more like homes and less like shelters. Little touches mattered. Wide windows, communal gardens, childcare rooms, safe spaces for women fleeing violence. She understood the needs in ways Liam didn't, and he listened. That was what made it work. They were different. They still came from two different worlds. But now, they walked side by side. They built together. Then, one afternoon, nearly a year after Rosa's return, an envelope arrived. It was thin and heavy, the Sterling family crest stamped in wax. Liam recognized it before he opened it. The handwriting was his mother's, elegant, slanted, cold. He read the contents quietly, then passed it to Rosa. An invitation. Magnus Sterling's 75th birthday gala. Hosted at the family estate. Formal attire. Strict security. Attendance required. The note emphasized, for all family members and A's, regardless of recent circumstances. Rosa stared at the last line. You think this is a trap? Liam shrugged. Probably. He hadn't seen his father since the day he walked out. Rumors reached him. Of course, Magnus was expanding into commercial real estate in Dubai, battling lawsuits, funding politicians. He was still powerful, still feared, still Sterling. But the empire had lost a certain shine since Liam left. Rosa hesitated. Do you want to go? He studied her face. Not unless you come with me. She laughed, light but nervous. I don't exactly have a gown. He stood. Then we'll get one, but it won't be for them. It'll be for you. That night, they went shopping together. Rosa tried on one dress, deep emerald green, soft against her skin, and Liam said nothing for a full minute. When she finally asked, too much, he shook his head. No, it's just that if they don't already regret everything, they're about to. The gala arrived on a warm Saturday in April. The Sterling estate glowed under layers of manicured perfection. Lights dripped from trees. Cameras flashed. Chauffeurs opened doors for politicians and celebrities. Then Liam arrived, without a chauffeur, driving an old truck with a Sterling Foundation logo on the side. He stepped out first. Clean suit. Simple tie. Head high. Then Rosa stepped out after him. The cameras turned. Some gasped. Some whispered. It was the first time she'd walked through the front entrance of the mansion as anything but staff. Inside, nothing had changed. The chandeliers still sparkled with practiced opulence. The portrait still watched. And at the center of it all, standing by a long banquet table, was Magnus Sterling. He was older now, thinner, but still iron-backed and imposing. He watched them approach without expression. Liam reached out first. Happy birthday, Dad. Magnus didn't take his hand. Instead, he turned his gaze to Rosa. You look like someone I used to know, he said. I doubt that, Rosa replied calmly. There was a beat of tension, the kind that hummed just beneath the skin. But Magnus didn't attack. Instead, he motioned to the room. Look around you. Liam, this could have been yours. Liam glanced at the gold, the suits, the fragile smiles on plastic faces. I have something better. You threw away power. I built purpose. Magnus scoffed. You think purpose pays dividends? No, Rosa cut in gently, but it pays respect. Several people nearby turned at her voice. She was calm, grounded, beautiful in her simplicity. There was no shame in her eyes. And for a fleeting moment, Magnus Sterling faltered. He didn't respond. Instead, he stepped away, disappearing into the crowd of donors and strategists. Liam and Rosa spent the rest of the evening floating through a sea of familiar, unfamiliar faces. Some approached with shallow kindness. Others ignored them entirely. One distant cousin leaned in and whispered, I think it's amazing what you two are doing. Really inspiring. But, it's not permanent, right? This whole phase. Rosa smiled sweetly. You're right. The phase where men like you own everything is ending. Later, on the balcony overlooking the garden, Liam leaned against the railing. I never thought I'd come back here, he said. Not like this. I'm glad you did, Rosa replied. He needed to see you didn't break. He turned toward her. I didn't. Because of you. You found your own name, she said. You didn't need theirs. They stood in silence for a while, watching the lights flicker below. I think, he said finally, we should buy that old church on King Street. She toned. The one with the broken windows. Yeah, We can turn it into something. Shelter, school, community kitchen, maybe all three. She grinned. That's a lot of work. He took her hand. So let's get to work. Over the next year, the church became a hub. Volunteers streamed in. Donations grew. Rosa took over the design of the interiors. Warm tones, open spaces, places where dignity could breathe. Kids painted murals on the back wall. A woman from the shelter they used to run now oversaw education programs. At the grand opening, Liam gave the speech. But Rosa was the heart. People no longer whispered, "Isn't she the maid?" They now said, "That's Rosa Morales, co-founder, designer, leader." Their wedding was small, in the garden behind the foundation. No press, no gowns with 5-digit price tags. Just friends, family, staff, and neighbors. James, the old butler from the estate, officiated. "You were always more than what they saw," he told Rosa as he kissed her cheek. After the vows, Rosa took the MIC, unexpectedly. "I used to think love was something soft," she said, "something fragile. But I learned that real love builds. It demands courage. It requires us to choose again and again, not out of comfort, but conviction. Liam didn't rescue me, and I didn't fix him. We found each other when we stopped pretending to be who the world told us we should be." She turned to the guests. "So if there's one thing I hope you take from today, it's this: love isn't always easy, but it's always worth the risk." They danced beneath string lights, laughed until their faces ached. And when the night ended, they didn't drive off into some distant sunset. They walked back into their neighborhood hand in hand, as two people with callous hands and clear hearts. Their story didn't end with a ring. It began with one. And every day after, they chose to keep building. Together. Love isn't about status, wealth, or power. It's about what you're willing to risk and what you're willing to build with someone who truly sees you. If love asked you to walk away from everything you've ever known, would you be brave enough to say yes?